It's a murder that stunned the world.
I don't think I'll ever forget it, ever.
John Lennon, killed by a deranged fan.
He was dead on arrival.
Decades later, the night remains unforgettable for the cop first on the scene.
I saw Lennon laying face down, and he was bleeding a lot.
And the doctor who wouldn't give up.
It's a Hail Mary, but sometimes they work.
While the man who did it makes a new bid for parole.
Mark David Chapman will never breathe fresh air again.
This is the night one of the most famous people on the planet was murdered.
My biggest emotion, I think, is what a waste of life.
Crime Files starts now.
The man who shot John Lennon walked up to the musician as he was leaving his limousine.
These are all massive wounds.
Very close to death, if not dead.
John stumbles into the vestibule of the Dakota. His very famous glasses fall off of his face and break on the pavement, and John collapses. Everybody knows where they were when they heard John Lennon was killed.
The suspect at this time is 25-year-old Mark David Chapman.
I was shocked to find the lack of attention that was given to Mark David Chapman's mental health issues. People knew that he was going to kill John Lennon, and you realize that he was a runaway train, but he could have been stopped.
3,000 screaming teenagers are at New York's Kennedy Airport to greet, you guessed it, the Beatles.
In 1964, Beatlemania, their music becomes a global sensation.
There is hero worship that recalls the heydays of Elvis Presley and Frank Sinatra.
John Lennon becomes a music icon. He's preaching peace. 1970, the band breaks up, but Lennon's not done. 1980, he's back, new albums out, and he's ready for a second act.
And I think John was so excited about recording new music, he began to get the juice again.
Yeah, professionally, life is good. Personally, his love for Yoko Ono is rekindled. Together, they have a 5-year-old son, and they live in a posh, beautiful apartment at the Dakota in Manhattan.
And they had so many hopes and so many dreams. They did not know that somebody was out there hunting John.
On the other side of the map, Mark David Chapman. He's living 5,000 miles away in Hawaii. He's 25, married, security guard. He has an obsession with Lennon, one that sparked years before.
Mark stumbles across an interview that John gave where John Lennon, off the cuff, tells a reporter, "I think we're more popular than Jesus Christ." Something flips in Mark David Chapman's mind. He picks up his guitar and he starts to play Imagine. Imagine if John Lennon is dead. So at 17 years old, Mark David Chapman puts a target on John Lennon's back.
The fixation, though, was not just Lennon. He had a list of 6 or 7 people. The late-night talk show host Johnny Carson, Jackie Kennedy Onassis, the actor George C. Scott. Chapman has said in parole board interviews that he wanted the notoriety of killing someone famous.
It's all I seemed to want at the time. It was my way out.
And John Lennon happened to be top of your list?
The top of the list. If he was less famous than 3 or 4 other people on the list, he would not have been shot.
Chapman considers Lennon a hypocrite. The song lyric, "Imagine no possessions," that's not Lennon's lifestyle, and this angers Chapman. He drew parallels with the book The Catcher in the Rye, and specifically the main character.
He sees himself as Holden Caulfield, looking to, do away with the phonies of the world.
I identified with the character, who seemed to be lost and troubled. Here's this singer that's singing of certain things and yet living in this opulence.
Mark David Chapman thought John Lennon had sold out, and he had to pay for that.
October 1980, his obsession reaches the point of action, and he told his wife Gloria he intended to kill Lennon. He showed her the gun, but she didn't go to the police. She urged him instead to go to counseling. That didn't happen.
He focuses back on John, his primary target.
On his last day at work, Chapman signed out as John Lennon, and he told the parole board about it.
I remember that distinctly. It was a kind of warning. It was just like, hey, this is going to happen.
While on that flight, Chapman's got 14 hours of Beatles music on cassette. He listens nonstop, and he's got a gun, a .38 revolver.
And he tells his cab driver at the airport, remember my name, Mark David Chapman, because I'm about to change the world.
Lennon enjoyed living in New York because people didn't bother him. And for as famous as he was, the family only had one bodyguard, and that was for their 5-year-old son. That was a former FBI agent named Doug McDougal.
And then he points to John, he says, you need a bodyguard. Somebody is going to target you. John says, I just need protection for my son. December 8th, 1980. Mark David Chapman has been standing outside the Dakota all day long.
There were 2 encounters that day.
Mark David Chapman runs up to John and shows John that he's just purchased a copy of his new album.
I said, John, would you sign my album? And he said, sure. He was very kind to me. Ironically, very kind.
He says, are we good here? Are we done? And Mark David Chapman says, yes, we're done. And John gets into his car and leaves. Mark David Chapman recounts those moments where the voices in his head are telling him, that's it, go home. You don't have to do this.
I did try to tell myself to leave. I was praying, God help me, I don't want to do this. Let's just go back to the hotel, get on a plane, get out of here.
There's another voice that is more domineering who says, you're on a mission.
I was so compelled to commit that murder that nothing would have dragged me away from that building.
Chapman stayed at the Dakota all day, for hours. John and Yoko went to a recording studio. They only come back because they want to kiss their son goodnight. Limo pulls up, Lennon gets out, and Chapman is right there.
I was ready for this to happen. I heard a voice inside myself say, do it, do it, do it.
Then gets into a shooter's position and fires several shots.
We never got a lot of calls at the Dakota. You know, it was bad for their reputation.
NYPD officer Peter Cullen and his partner were first on the scene.
There was a guy come running towards me. He says, officer, be careful. There's a guy shooting a gun in there. And then I knew, this is the real McCoy.
Guns drawn, they approached the Dakota, and the first person they come across is the doorman.
He pointed in the direction of Chapman. He said, he just shot Lennon. Not your everyday criminal. He looked like a guy from an office. He had a shirt and tie, and I remember him, he had like an overcoat on or something like that.
Chapman never ran after the shooting. Instead, he stood there, pulled out a paperback, The Catcher in the Rye, the book that was driving his Lennon obsession.
And he didn't give us resistance physically or verbally at all.
While his partner put Chapman in the back of the police car, Cullen quickly moves to find Lennon in the lobby.
And I saw Lennon laying face down on the carpet, and he was bleeding a lot. I saw blood everywhere. He was hit 4 or 5 times, and he was hit in the prime area.
Cullen and the other officers then make a snap decision. They cannot wait for an ambulance, so 2 officers scoop up Lennon.
They put John in the back of a police car and took off. Yoko was with him.
A picture's taken that night. Officer Tony Palma standing with Cullen.
Tony had his jacket zip it up because he had blood all over his shirt from carrying Lennon. Laid him across the back seat. The whole key was get him to the hospital as fast as you could. It was the right thing to do. We could tell when someone's going out of the picture. There's no amount of first aid that we could do there.
2 cops then rush Lennon to the hospital, and that's when Cullen's attention turns to Chapman.
He was pretty forthcoming with a lot of things. I remember him apologizing to us for ruining our night. I turned around and he was in the back seat of the patrol car, and I said, "You gotta be kidding me." I said, "You just ruined your whole effing life." And he just stared at me.
One of the most chilling things that Chapman told Cullen that night is that there was a big man inside of him and a little man. And on this night, the little man won.
It was what was driving him to do what he did. When the big man took over, Lennon was safe. When the little man took over, I guess that's when he decided he's going to shoot him.
Crime Files continues now.
December 8th, 1980, in the backseat of a speeding police car, the famous Beatle, John Lennon, shot by Mark David Chapman and now bleeding out.
He didn't look very good. He got shot at least 4 times.
Roosevelt Hospital is 13 blocks away. Cops got there in less than 2 minutes.
They paged me overhead. Before I ran down there, I called the ER. I said, "Well, what's going on?" And they go, "Well, we have a gunshot wound to the chest coming in."
Dr. David Halloran is the man who will try to save Lennon's life.
It's notoriety, it's not fame. Unfortunately, if you Google me now, I think that's the only thing that comes up. I can't run away from it. It's, tag, you're it.
A man yells, "We've got a gunshot in the chest."
Alan Weiss becomes a central figure that night. He was a patient in the ER. He'd been in a motorcycle accident and he was waiting to be treated.
So I'm lying on a gurney, and behind me is the entrance to the OR. And so from behind me, I hear the door slam open, and in come these police officers carrying somebody between them. And they bring him into the room that I am lying right outside of.
No one said, "This is John Lennon. This is just a man who's got obvious gunshot wounds over his left chest."
These 2 officers come out. They're literally standing next to where I'm lying. My eyes are closed. And one says to the other, "Can you believe it? John Lennon." Did I really hear that the most famous Beatle, one of the most famous people in the world, is lying in the room 5 feet away from me? So I didn't believe it. I couldn't believe it. It can't be John Lennon. It just can't be John Lennon. But if it is John Lennon, you can't be lying out here.
Weiss is a TV news producer, a journalist, and fate has suddenly put him 5 feet away from the story of his lifetime.
Your whole raison d'etre is to get information as quickly as possible, as long as it's accurate. So I lay there quietly and wondering what to do, and I hear crying.
Yoko Ono walks in, escorted by police.
I've heard the name John Lennon. This woman who is clearly Yoko Ono is crying. Adrenaline's a wonderful thing.
Weiss has a hip injury, but he knows there's a phone down the hallway. So for as much pain as he's in, he gets up out of the gurney and he hobbles down that hallway to make a call to his newsroom.
I said, "Neil, I think John Lennon's been shot." And he said, "I just heard a call for an ambulance to 72nd Street in Central Park West. I've heard the name John Lennon. I think I've seen Yoko Ono. And now you're telling me it was a call for an ambulance to 72nd and Central Park West where the Dakota is? John Lennon's been shot. He's here at Roosevelt Hospital. Get here right away."
Someone says, "Hey, that looks like John Lennon." And I go, "Nah, that could be John Lennon."
The nurses find Lennon's wallet. There's ID inside. There are pictures inside. And then another doctor comes into the ER. This doctor had been at the Dakota during the shooting, and he'd seen Yoko Ono get into a police car.
So while we're in the middle of this doubting Thomas phase that I call it, he comes in and says, "Yes, it is." That's when I had my OMG moment.
The medical team now knows, and Weiss knows. As he limps back to the gurney, he can see into the room where Halloran is desperately trying to save Lennon's life.
The doctor was in a white coat, and he was just covered with blood. To be looking at John Lennon, or lying there like that was just an awful, awful, awful sight.
While you're manually pumping his heart, it's not pumping on its own.
No.
So without your massage, it's flatline.
Yeah.
He wasn't going to be able to bring Lennon back, and yet this doctor wasn't giving up.
I think I would have been hard on myself if I didn't do anything.
It was just intensity. I mean, literally, you could feel the intensity of what was going on in that room.
Because you don't know. And you don't know, when he totally went out. It's a Hail Mary, but I mean, sometimes they work.
What Halloran can't see, there's an artery up here in Lennon's chest. A bullet shredded it. He had already bled out. He was gone, only 40 years old. And that's when Weiss says to this day he experienced something he calls eerie.
In the ER, there's no Muzak, but in the hospital, there is Muzak. And at about 11:15, the Muzak plays the song, All My Lovin'. I thought God had an incredible sense of humor. A minute and a half after it ends, a woman's voice screams, "Oh no, oh no, no, no." It was Yoko Ono. Just the absolute, complete, and total pain and shrillness of it. There was no question.
And you just think, woulda, coulda, shoulda. What if he had a lesser injury? You feel responsible, but at the end of the day, I mean, you grow up a little bit and you say, well, you did your best in the situation.
John Lennon was brought to the emergency room at the Roosevelt site, St. Luke's Roosevelt Hospital. He was dead on arrival.
And I went in the next day and I produced the 6 o'clock news. I was not going to let somebody else do that show.
Police officer ran up to the doctor and said, "We have a gunshot hit in the chest."
It's so hard to watch this video and not want to cry. Truly not want to cry.
I love you, John.
Yeah, I love you, John. It's been 40-something years.
And it still gets you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Fans gathered for days outside the Dakota singing Beatles songs. John Lennon was cremated and his ashes were brought to Yoko Ono.
And the concierge looks at the box and he goes, "Well, what's that?" He goes, "This was once the greatest rock and roll legend of all time."
Crime Files continues now.
This was the biggest story of its kind of the year, if possibly the decade.
On December 8th, 1980, Mark David Chapman shot John Lennon in the back 4 times. With all the media attention, Chapman was getting death threats and police were taking no chances. The perp walk, it wasn't even Chapman. Another officer played the role. Chapman initially pled not guilty by reason of insanity, but a few months later, he had a change of heart. He says God told him to plead guilty. In August of 1981, sentencing, he was asked if he had anything to say, and he read an excerpt from The Catcher in the Rye.
I'm standing on the edge of some crazy cliff. What I have to do, I have to catch everybody if they start to go over the cliff.
At so many different points, somebody could have taken him aside, put him into a mental health facility, but they didn't.
The judge gave him 20 years to life. Chapman's currently at the Greenhaven Correctional Facility in Stormville, New York. Yoko Ono has written letters in the past asking that he never be released. Parole's been denied 13 times.
Mark David Chapman will never breathe fresh air again.
Chapman's stepsister goes even further. I spoke to Linda Bright on the phone.
I think he could be in solitary confinement the rest of his life. I'm sorry. He just, he was bad.
Her mother and Chapman's father got married years after the killing, and she showed us letters that Chapman sent his dad. But Bright told us in the early 90s he stopped reading those letters. He became disgusted at what his son had done. She says the stress of it led to a heart attack, and within 2 years, he was dead.
I think he killed his father. He killed his father.
Lennon's ashes were scattered in strawberry fields in Central Park, and right across the street, just inside the gated archway, the gas candles still burn by the steps where Lennon fell. The history which marks the Dakota is very present.
It looks so normal, and yet it was a scene of such a horrific crime. I kind of feel like it's etched with acid into my memory. What a genius he was, what a good person he was, and how he died way, way too early.